here up until this point, and that burning question is really WTF. Okay, now some of you probably are asking the true WTF because of the experiences you've had in 2020 so far. But it's not what you think. It is definitely not what you think. That question is, what's the future? We're all futurists, right? We're thinking about the future. We want to know where we're going. And that burning question for all of us this year is, what's the future? Although we kind of are feeling the WTF, right? We're really like, oh my gosh, what's going on? This is chaos. There's another question we really need to ask us, and it's also answered with, what's the future? And that is, what's the plan? They're one and the same, right? What's the plan? Where are we going? Where is this whole life and purpose? Where is it leading to? What's the path that we're currently on? And it also answers the question, the overarching question of why we're here for the Sustainable Development Goals, because that is the plan and roadmap for the future. I want to give you an analogy to kind of set up and frame the Sustainable Development Goals and where we're going. So if you're driving down the freeway of the future, and you really want to go to the future, but you look up at the freeway, the highway sign, and it says that you're going in the past. Well, if you slow down or reduce your speed while driving on the highway in the wrong direction, you are only going slower in the wrong direction. Now, I hope you understand what I mean by that, but I want to make it even clearer and hit the point home. A lot of companies in their annual reports, a lot of countries and cities in their annual reports, they say, we're reducing our carbon emissions by 70% this year, by 80%. By 2020, we're going to go plastic free. By 2020, we're going to go carbon neutral. What are they telling you? They're telling you absolutely nothing. They're telling you that they're going slower in the wrong direction. They're still doing harm. They're still creating emissions, creating plastic, waste, and problems for our planet. They're just doing it a lot slower. So that's like somebody saying, I'm going to stab you, but I'm going to stab you really slow. They're still killing you, still doing harm. They're just doing it extremely slow. So there's this thought philosophy that we must stop and reverse our direction and go in the right direction. Now, I want you to know that if the entire world today were to unify itself and say, we're going to stop and go in the right direction, then that's noble, it's wonderful, but it's not enough. And I want to tell you why. And this is the first part of kind of a little bit dystopian, but it's the reason why we have a goal and a plan. Because if the entire world were to stop and reverse its direction, does that mean that, poof, all of a sudden the entire world is clean and healthy and no greenhouse gas emissions, no more warming, no more pollution? No. Lao Tzu said it best. If we don't change direction, we may end up where we're going, right? And this plastic pollution and greenhouse gas emissions just do not disappear. They remain here. Somebody is left with the responsibility to clean them up. And a lot of futurists, a lot of us here in this room, a lot of us online, are doing direct air capture services, environmental cleanup, planetary services. These are the fires from California, the fires from Australia, from New Zealand. Did you happen to know that all the plastic that ever has been created in our world is still here on our planet, except for less than 1% that is not here anymore, kind of, because we burned it and we turned it into a greenhouse gas emission by burning it. So even that is here for us to see. But these fires and things that we're experiencing in our world, they just don't go away. At the beginning of this year, we remember that there was the big fire in Australia, correct? That fire emitted twice the number of greenhouse gas emissions at the beginning of the year that entire Australia emits in 1 year. 900 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. So who's left with the cleanup if we all have this noble ambition and the entire world stops and reverses its direction? Where does this all go? We are seeing that we've had the movies Independence Day and Total Recall and many other sci-fi movies. Well, the alien has always been among us. It's the virus. And it's caused by climate change and the things that we're doing to our environment. It's created us to caused us to wear masks. But what's the next step? Do we wear gas masks, oxygen masks, space suits? What's the future of that? So a lot of us are really concerned now with COVID-19, and we should put a lot of respect and humility into that. But basically, we need to make sure we wash our hands and wear protection and do those measures. But I want you to know there's some other great waves coming right behind COVID-19. Some recessions, climate change, biodiversity collapse, and the possibility of other pandemics. In the food industry in our world, we've seen during COVID that there's a lot of things out there that are really not doing so well. And food has been a big one. Not only toilet paper and sanitizers and masks, but also food and how we use it. But did you know that all the food that is produced in our world, we throw 40% of it away before it ever meets the table? Most people get confused by that 40%. They don't understand that it's not just 40%, that it's really an exponential waste. That exponential waste is created because there's three top ways we dispose of our food. The top way is to bury it. The second way is to burn it. And the third way is to dump it in our oceans. Well, what most people don't know, that number one way by burying food, whether it's in packaging or not, it aggregates, it ferments, it turns into methane, which is a greenhouse gas. And it's a much more potent greenhouse gas at creating heat. And in the short-term effect, and short-term means at least 10 years, where CO2 emissions are much longer. So now that 40% waste, which is also catastrophic resource, water, transportation, marketing, logistics, has now just turned into an exponential waste. And it's really coming back to bite us. When you look at our world from outer space, and when you throw something away, I want you to really think, there is no throwaway. It all remains here, and that's why circular economy principles and ways of doing things differently, of producing, and how we keep things in closed cycles and the biological system and the technical systems, which are the fundamental principles of circular economy, are so vital because a lot of this waste of our production is coming back to harm us. Carl Sagan said it best, and I'm going to let him talk to you here for a second. Well, I don't know if you can hear this. It doesn't sound like the sound's on. Louder.
2 years of full work and recognize that organism at war with itself. We are one.
So what Carl Sagan said, he's a famous astronomer and has pushed futurism and the way we look at the world forward. He basically just said there that there's this emerging trend that sees the earth and the world and all species on it as one organism, one organization, all in this together on the same boat, the same spaceship Earth. And he said, an organism divided amongst itself is doomed. And that is very profound and very true. We're eating our finite resources of our planet, and there is a limit to growth. Here's another audio.
The safety glass is on.
Please.
By the end of this century, the emissions keep rising. The average temperature on Earth could go up another 4 to 8 degrees. What I'm saying is the planet's on fucking fire. There are a lot of things we could do to put it out. Are any of them free? No, of course not. Nothing's free, you idiots. Grow the fuck up. You're not children anymore. I didn't mind explaining photosynthesis to you when you were 12, but you're adults now, and this is an actual crisis. Got it? Safety glasses off, motherfuckers.
So I have to apologize for the harsh words. It's a little bit meant to be comical, but it's also meant as a wake-up call. Bill Nye, the science guy, has been talking about science, climate, our environment, the stars, the planetary systems for well over 30 years. He educated me in many ways with his Bill Nye, the Science Guy program on TV, and taught a lot of wonderful things that you would not get in school. And he's like, let's wake up, let's get on it, let's do something. And that's really where we are. What's the future? Why all this learning, all this education? Why are we reacting? And there really is no more time waiting for us. It is a time to act now. So we're here for the Sustainable Development Goals, and I want you to be clear, they began in 2015. We're 5 years into it, and we're just talking about them like they came out yesterday. I think that's a huge problem. And we need to understand how to recognize them and the importance of what they actually mean. So most climate activists and speakers show you this image. This is the second catalog image of our world. It's the Blue Marble. It was taken in 1971 in December by a satellite image. And it is really shown by climate activists for a couple reasons. They want to show you that we're all on the same spaceship Earth, moving in the same direction. I show it to you for two different reasons. The first reason is I want you to connect yourself as a symbiotic being, a homo symbios, to this planet as part of a symbiotic Earth. I want you to feel that whatever you do, no matter how small or how big, has a big effect as a crew member on spaceship Earth. There is no one on this Earth that is just a passenger. We all contribute one way or another, and we can do it good or bad to get us into that future where we want to go. But the second and most important reason I show it to you, and I think even all the futurists in this room will not get it, is for what reason? Can anybody ask me or tell me why I show this image? What is this image? What does it mean? This image is sheer innovation. Had we not gone to the moon, had we not gone to outer space, used emerging technology, the latest innovation, the latest computing power, and by accident look back at our own planet, we wouldn't even have this at all. It's through innovation. It's through emerging technologies. It's about thinking about the future, discovering, trying to figure out how our world works. And to the minute, real-time, update, live information from satellites is beaming down to us every second in real time, giving us geospatial data of the lifeblood, the heartbeat, the pulse of our planet every second of the day. Tells us soil moisture, precipitation, cloud movements, all sorts of information every second of the day. And there's well over 1,000 data sets and points that are collecting this information. What does this information do? It helps us to reach the future. It helps us to create business models and protect us to make sure that we can have planetary services that clean up and leave our planet better than we found it, to make sure we can avoid catastrophes and disasters. There are over 1,000 close orbit science fleets looking at our planet each and every day. Now, I talk a lot about Elon Musk. He's a friend of mine, but he has done some fabulous things, and I hope most of you have kind of kept your finger on the pulse of what's going on, but there's this global Earth observation system, systems of system that are continuously looking at our planet, monitoring them and seeing what's going on. But in November 2018, Elon was approved by the FCC for Starlink broadband internet, so that he has to get roughly 12,000 satellites into space and 50% of them, so around 6,000 of them by 2024. Why is this important? Because it's a global SIM, because it gives us another lifeblood or pulse of on our planet. It reduces inequality because now everybody has access to that emerging technologies, that information of what's going on in our world and how we should live. And he's already almost launched, I think it's 1,200 of these satellites already. And he's had some snafus, and there's a lot of controversy, but he's already made a pivot. But this type of thinking is what we call moonshot thinking. It's what futurists do: foresight modeling, backcasting, systems dynamic modeling. But it's really moonshot thinking. We strive for the moon, and if we reach the stars, we've still made super achievements. I want to give you a story about Dr. Bertrand Piccard, and after I tell this story, I'm going to need the audio loud, please. Dr. Bertrand Piccard is the owner of Solar Impulse, the first man to fly around the world in a solar airplane without any fuel, and the owner of 1,000 Solutions. That's a company that comes up with 1,000 solutions that solve global grand challenges on our planet. This is a photo of he and I at COP24 in Katowice, Poland, which is the United Nations Conference of the Parties. And we saw each other many times at Davos, World Economic Forum, and other conferences of the parties, COP events. And after he flew around the world, I asked him, I said, how was it? How did it go? How did it feel? Congratulations, you just flew around the world. He said, Mark, it was unbelievable. It was surreal. Have you ever flown in an all-electric car? And I said, yeah, just a couple of weeks ago in Italy, I was at a H farm and was in one of the new smart cars, all electric, and it was surreal. So I was inside, it was totally silent. I had it on for 5 minutes and didn't know the engine was on and running and ready to go, and I was like, okay, well, how do you turn this thing on? And then when we started going, it was totally silent. And it says, it was surreal. He said, imagine that times 1,000. I'm up in Solar Impulse. It's 1,000 times more effective than the most professional sport glider, much bigger, all with solar panels. I look off to the left, see the solar cells on the wings. I look off to the right, see the solar cells on the wings. And then I look back at this cockpit, all the instrumentation, the gear I'm wearing. I'm sitting on a toilet and all this technology. And he said, I'm from the future. I'm a spaceman. I'm from outer space. I'm the future. And he said, Mark, we were in this glide. The way Solar Impulse works is it acts like a glider and it goes just as high as possible, scratches the atmosphere, and then it shuts off the engines, lets the cells draw energy, and then it shuts off the engines and does a long, gradual glide. And these glides can last for quite a while. And he says, I'm in this glide, and it's no engines on, no propellers, it's totally silent. And he said about 15 minutes into that silence, I'd taken all the selfies, did all the instrumentations, done all the logs. And I got thinking to myself, I looked around again and said, no, I'm not in the future. Solar cells have existed for a long time. PV, airplanes have existed for a long time. All this instrumentation has existed for a long time. I'm just the first to put it all together and to make it work. I'm living in the now. Everybody else is living in the past. We need to live in the future. We need to think about how we're going to be in the future, especially for times like a pandemic. And he had a wonderful conversation in the midst of his flight with Ban Ki-moon, who released the Sustainable Development Goals, and I want you to hear this conversation between the two of them.
Hello, Solar Pulse. Hello, Captain Picard. Where are you now flying?
I speak to you from the cockpit of Solar Impulse in the middle of the Pacific, flying on solar power. only, no fuel. You know, Mr. Secretary General, what you are doing today in New York, signing the Paris Climate Agreement, is more than protecting the environment. It is the launch of the clean technology revolution. But there is so much resistance everywhere. So be pioneers, be adventurers, be explorers of the solutions of today. This is how we can make a better world. Don't let the resistance take over, because we have the solutions. And if an airplane can come, like solar pods, can fly day and night without fuel, the world, of course, can be much cleaner.
I am inspired by your pioneering spirit, and while you are making history, we have also made the history today. More than 175 countries signed the climate change agreement, and thank you for your leadership and inspiration. And I thank you very much. All the best to you. Bon voyage.
So, moonshot thinking. Who has a better wonky moonshot than this? This is last year, 2019, in Songdo, Korea, with Ban Ki-moon. We were working on the next iteration of the Sustainable Development Goals, what comes after them from 2030 to 2050. And we took this photo together to what possibly can be the roadmap and plan after the Sustainable Development Goals. But I like to tease a little bit because, you know, the Ban Ki-moon is his name, and the moonshot, because that's the thinking he used when it was developed for the Sustainable Development Goals and the launch and release. I want you to understand right off the bat, and I want to apologize to all of you, when we were presented with the Sustainable Development Goals, we were presented to them in the wrong way. This is the way we know them, if we know them at all. Very linear and lateral, laid out 1 to 17. Humans do not know that they can think in systems, and so we always very sideload, linear and lateral. They were presented, the goals were presented to us in the wrong way. A lot of people don't know what they're for, how to look at them, how to understand them. And when I tell people I'm an advocate for the goals, they go, oh, great. Super, I like number 1, red. It's my favorite color, no poverty. And I say, fabulous, that's super. And they say, that's the one I'm working on. I say, great. But did you know, and I want you to know, it's virtually impossible, it doesn't matter which one, for you to pick one sustainable development goal and only work on that. They're tied together as a system. If you were to pick number 1, no poverty, you would immediately touch on zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, life on land, life below water, climate action, and many more, because they're all tied to a system. And so we don't know how to look at them and how to understand them. Yes, I'm a climate activist, I'm a climate speaker, many other things, but I want you to understand, and this is the myth that I want to dispel and the education I want to give you today to set up the big picture on the Sustainable Development Goals. For the goals, because a lot of people were presented with them wrong and don't understand how to read them, I want you also to know that we need a vision of what it will look and feel like to reach those goals December 2030. And so for the United Nations, I wrote the Sustainable Development Goal Manifesto. And what it is it's like a story, a narrative, a manifesto, what it will feel like if we reach those goals December 2030. And I want to read that for you now, and you can read along with me, or you can close your eyes, and I want you to physically feel and go into yourself how you would feel if you lived in a world that reached all the things that this manifesto discusses. Imagine a world where there is no poverty and zero hunger. We have good health and well-being, quality education, and full gender equality everywhere. There is clean water and sanitation for everyone. Affordable and clean energy has created decent work and sustainable economic growth. And our prosperity is fueled by investments in resilient industry, innovation, and infrastructure, and that has reduced inequalities. We live in sustainable cities and communities, and responsible consumption and production has healed our planet. Climate action has stopped and reversed the warming of our planet, and we have flourishing life below water and abundant, diverse life on land. We enjoy peace and justice through strong institutions and have built long-term partnerships for the goals. So the 17 Sustainable Development Goals really are a roadmap for the future. They're for each and every one of us, and we need to see them as a system. I want you to know this is a future that I want to live in. This is what I would like to see by December 2030, and I hope you see this vision as well and can see what a wonderful world that would be. This is the true way that we should look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a system, as a wedding cake, as a pie, because they're all connected as a system, but they're all tied to agriculture, seafood, food, and beverages. All 17 of them, 11 of them intensively, intrinsically are tied to food. But the most important layer that we misunderstand is this bottom layer, the biodiversity. Why is that important? Because every computer, every car, every piece of food we produce on this earth comes from the resources that biodiversity bottom layer provides. That's where we get the resources to grow food, the resources to make computers, and anything on our world, because we're in a circular economy, whether we like it or not. We're in a world where that's how it works. We can't pull things from other places out of thin air. It comes here and it all goes back to our earth. But I want you to look at this next pyramid and tell me if you see any similarities. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The bottom two layers, this is our human physiological basic needs of humanity. The bottom two layers, the physiological needs are breathing, food, water, sleep, homeostasis, excretion, sex. The next one is safety, security of body, employment, resources, mortality, the family, health, and property. Those bottom two layers are the basic resources. It's what we see here. It's for each and every one of us, not for a city, government, not for companies. It's for us. It's for us. This is the Sustainable Development Goal SDG dashboard on a country level. This is from 2017. It's kind of the scorecard of how countries are doing. If you see a green square, that means that they've achieved that SDG. If you look at Finland, what is it, 5 out of 17. Germany's 3 out of 17 of the goals in green. And then on the far right, it's kind of hard to see. You can see the ranking out of all the countries together there. That's how we're doing. Before I get too deep into where this is going, there's something that I really left out and forgot to tell you after we spoke about Monkey Moon and you saw the video, and that is highly important. Did you know that 100 countries came together September 24th and signed off on the Sustainable Development Goals? 197 countries. I want you to know that they not only agreed on the roadmap for our future, and they signed off on it, but if you've ever been around politicians or organizations, it's hard enough for two countries to decide where they're going to go to lunch in the afternoon, let alone 197 countries decide on a roadmap for the future. It is a historical precedent. It is called the first ever global moonshot for our world. It is an unheard of historical precedent for our world. And many of us missed that. Many of us misunderstood that historical precedence, that it is a clear roadmap and path for our future. And I want to make you clear on this. So this is 2017. This is 2019. You can see that Denmark dropped down 3 out of 17. Germany dropped totally down 0 out of 17. But you also see that I included this other image of our Earth next to it. You can see the progress of countries. We also have the 2020 update, so we also know where we are standing on 2020 country basis. And you can see Germany is also still 0 out of 17, no progress made. Many things like that are going on. But the reason I show you the Earth there and the SDGs around it is it doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter. Because if Germany was all 17 out of 17 in green, or China was 17 out of 17, Sweden, Denmark, it doesn't matter. Why? Because of that blue marble right there. We're all on the same spaceship Earth. There is no upper deck. We can't say we're on the spaceship Titanic and I'm okay because I'm on the upper deck, sweet, fine, I've got a bar and a butler and everything's fine, when the ship is sinking, when we're in trouble, when we need a roadmap and a plan. And so we all need to get on board. One thing that people don't know about the Sustainable Development Goals, and this is not anything I really want you to read, but it's more of something that came out in 2017 from the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, is we need to reset the world's global operating system to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. A lot of people believe that the Sustainable Development Goals are a tweak as business as usual, that it's a little modification, an add-on, or an adjustment to our system. I want you to be clear. All 17 of the goals, all of the targets and indicators are a new operating system for our world. Not anything add-on. It is a new global economy, a new global way of raising the bar entirely at a new global level and saying we will never let humanity get below this global level ever again. We're setting the bar high to make sure that we can ensure a solid infrastructure for our future. We can still have dictators and crazy people out there doing crazy stuff, but for humanity and for our future and the way we work and operate, we will never lower the bar below that ever again. The reason the burning question is so vital and important is because what other plan do we have? Does anybody know of a global plan that works for everyone, that everybody's on board with? Is it the Green New Deal? Is it the Trumpocalypse? Is it the Bolsonaros? Is it the Putins, the Shays, the Duartes, the Erdogans? Are those the plans? Is it going from a face mask to a gas mask to an oxygen mask to a spacesuit? Is that the future? Is that the plan? You have to take your current business models, your current operating systems that you're dealing with in humanity, or even your organizations, and push those out into the future. Where do they go? What does that look like? The other thing that most people do not understand about the Sustainable Development Goals is how we look at them. What monies are behind them? How do we reach and achieve this? I want you to know there is a dollar figure behind reaching them to 2030, December 2030. And when we began, it was 90 trillion US dollars. Now it's around 95 trillion US dollars, 94, it's floating in that range. Might be a little bit higher. But I want you to know if we do the high carbon scenario, business as usual, as you see here on the left, we do not do anything. We just continue on how we're doing it. It's a little bit different, but we spend 89 trillion US dollars regardless. That means when the car breaks down or the tires need to be changed, we just change them in the high carbon scenario. When the building gets old, we just tear it down and build another high carbon building. It's that business as usual operating system. But if we do it in the low carbon scenario, the sustainable development way, it's only $5 trillion more. It's around 94 trillion US dollars. So it's only about that's about 14, 15 trillion dollar difference, right? It's not that bad. It's actually a pretty good bet for what you get out of it long term. And it's a better business model. So I've got a lot of other slides I'm going to kind of fly through, but I wanted to tell you, a lot of people want to say, what's the return on investment for being sustainable? Why do I want to do it? Why doesn't it make sense? I want you to know that for every dollar invested in nutrition towards the Sustainable Development Goals, that there is a $16 return. $16 return. That's more than double, that's more than triple return. This is by Unilever. That Unilever also says by embracing the global goals, we could generate $12 trillion of new business value a year. So that 94 or 90 trillion US dollars to reach the goals by 2030, that's $6 trillion a year had we started in 2015. This is already telling us that there's $6 extra trillion of opportunities there to reach the goals. In 2019, there was this business ambition set of 1.5 degrees of warming in the Sustainable Development Goals. 87 major companies with a market cap of $2.3 trillion said we will push. So now we're already starting to get on the wave of reaching the goals. But here's some great news. I want to show you this video real quick about the business Avengers who've gotten on board and the results they've seen. Turn up the
You ready?
So sorry I gave you a heart attack on that. Hopefully you're prepared. But in January of this year, no, it was February of this year, Microsoft came out with this great ambition, very noble. They said 1 billion climate innovation fund, carbon negative by 2030, so not carbon neutral, carbon negative by 2030, very noble. But here's the one that most people forgot or didn't understand. Remove our historical carbon emissions by 2050. So I want you to be aware of what I've said so far. But what they're saying is we're going to leave the planet better than we found it. We're going to go not only in the right direction, but we're going to help clean up our planet. So every emission we produce through our business, through our products, we're going to remove that historical carbon emission. I was just back from the World Economic Forum after this and on stage. And I said, mark my words, Google, Amazon, Apple, Tesla, and all the others, and now we're going to jump on board and say, okay, forget about billions, we're going to go tens of billions, we're going to go trillions, we're going to really try to beat this because smaller company, smaller ambition, but it set the historical precedent for us to now move in the right direction. A couple days later, on Valentine's Day, February 14th, Delta Airlines, one of the first airlines to say, we're going to be carbon neutral by March 1st, and we're going to do all this around sustainability, which is unheard of for an airline to do and that, to start thinking in that direction. Then Jeff Bezos, February 17th, $10 billion Earth Fund from his private funds that he mentions on Instagram. Then we have the We Mean Business Coalition, 1,800 different companies set, or 1,200 companies set 1,800 ambitions of a market cap of $24.8 trillion. Then the world benchmark, 2,000 companies, $43 trillion in revenue market through 74 countries jumping on board on the Sustainable Development Goals. Then again, Amazon, $2 billion fund. So now the ball's rolling, things are moving. We've started to put our foot on this exponential roadmap on reaching the goals. And then we have this, but that's actually a positive thing. And you can't read these, so I'm going to kind of tell you what they're about real quick, and then I'm almost done. What it is basically environmental social governance funds, investments and divestments that move towards the Sustainable Development Goals have really a super potential as a better business model. And so people always say, well, what's the proof? Why do I want to do this? How much is it going to cost? And is this a better business model? Well, not only in 2019, the last quarter, but the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter of this year, NASDAQ, Nikkei, New York Stock Exchange, the global S&P 500, the S&P Global, the Morning Gold Star benchmarks, all said first, second, and third quarters, absolutely, ESG funds outperformed their conventional counterparts 25 to 28 in the Morningstar report reviews. And these are some of the things, you can't really read them, but I want you to know the proof is in the money. They're putting their mouth where their money is. It is really under new management. If you don't divest and change your portfolio for environmental, social governance, you're going to go out of business. It's a better business model. It provides you with resilience. Those companies that change, this is from BlackRock, from the new normal, business as usual, to invest in ESGs, they are all having resilience through this time, amazing resilience, amazing performance, on and on. And so I don't want to bore you with the numbers, but that's really what businesses always want. That's what the board wants. BlackRock said if any of their investors, any of their portfolio managers, if they're not ESG, they're going to be fined or cast out. That's just the bottom line. So I could go on and show you tons of reports that are out there. I hope you'd read them yourself. But there is so much money involved in this, and I'm going to leave it at that. But I want you to know the Sustainable Development Goals are the only roadmap for the future. It's the only thing that's the global plan that will work for everyone. They're quantifiable. They were developed very intrinsically, and there's so much that we can learn by implementing them into our lives, into our business models, and I guarantee that it will create a beautiful future by December 2030 if we apply them all. Thank you.